Hello everybody, my name is Lily Tarrant, and the focus of this presentation will be on how I am working towards building the argument for my final essay that I decided to write on Borderlands, La Frontera by Gloria Anzaldúa and Winona by Pauline Hopkins. I'm going to be touching on my tentative driving question and why it is important to discuss it. I will also be sharing a couple of the secondary sources that I have found so far in the form of articles that will help to add more support and depth to my claims and evidence, along with any other sources I want to find as I do more research. I will also be including the certain concepts I would like to use to connect back to my driving question, any textual evidence or literary devices, and will be listing any issues that I have stumbled upon or that I am anticipating during this essay writing process. So for my tentative driving question, I will be asking, how does identity in relation to race, culture, and gender differ and affect the unique power struggles of the West presented in each text? Specifically, this essay will be directed towards Anzaldúa and her Chicana heritage, the character Winona, the Black and Indigenous versus white binary, and gender expectations. Race and gender are really prominent aspects in both texts, but they are represented through various different situations. Both Anzaldúa and Winona are mixed in a world where colonialism has brought division through physical, psychological, and social borders where power and inequality is present, and it will be important to tie this into discussions on the dominant masculine aspects being represented as well. This also connects to the main things we have learned within this course. Now, these are just a few secondary sources that I've come across while browsing articles on JSTOR, and these will help aid me in supporting my arguments about the struggles of belonging within being culturally mixed, or being a person of color in the West, especially also while being a woman who is often overpowered or objectified by men. One of the articles also touches on anti-slavery movements as presented in Winona. However, I would like to search for more on gender inequality and conquest captivity in the West, borders, and religion or education. But these are the ones that I have so far, such as Freedom from Heaven, State Violence and Religious Protest in the Early Black Atlantic by John Sensbach, Being Mixed Race by Ronald R. Sundstrom, and Recolonizing Black Canadian Women and Roots to Resistance by Jacqueline Ben-John. And these are all from JSTOR, but it might be helpful if I decide to choose other methods of sources beyond articles. So for my approach to this essay, I want to try and discuss Anzaldúa and the people within her culture, as well as Winona as the other. They are both impactful women who grapple with the forces of dominant masculinity and its effects on their culture through colonialism. I also want to mention cultural identity issues in terms of them not only being people of color, but being mixed and indigenous coming from different backgrounds, along with how they are captives to patriarchy and get caught up within divides, such as Winona and others being physically held captive through slavery or means of imprisonment, which we have seen through the text, and both of them being captive to the constraints of various types of borders. I also wanted to discuss the various binaries present in the text, such as white versus people of color, women versus men, and even the power struggles between men, specifically in Winona, the pro-slavery and anti-slavery beliefs, which I find to be an interesting look into dominant masculinity and the requirements of dominance. Borderlands and Winona both portray the negative aspects to Western colonialism. However, I found that it was interesting that Anzaldúa basically provides a call to action for white people on how they can change their ways to be allies and stop division, while Winona almost acts as the action through Warren and the anti-slavery movement's beliefs that Black people and Indigenous people should be entitled to the same freedoms, rights, and human decency as white people. Warner almost acts as a voice for readers with his reactions to the appalling treatment they receive. I also like the idea of discussing reverse roles, such as how white people are being portrayed as savages and beasts. Also, Winona's dad was white, raised in indigenous culture. These ideas, again, are a work in progress. I also wanted to include some textual evidence that is based on Anzaldúa's personal experiences within Chicana culture when positioned in a dominant white institution or methods of thinking. And when she discusses the mestizo people in chapter 7, both Anzaldúa and Winona are belittled for being women, such as when Borderlands states, "You are nothing but a woman," and when in Winona it states her as just being a little girl. And she's referred to as a child woman who is only truly noticed for her beauty and education. The education part only really mattered if it meant that it would increase her worth in the slave trade rather than her being an intelligent woman. Again, Winona is the daughter of a white man, and her mother was a freed slave, while also being brought up as indigenous, but white men only see her as Black, which is why she's put into slavery. There are the physical borders in Borderlands, being between Mexico and the States, along with some language barriers. And then in Winona, there are borders between states, being between freedom and slavery, as well as waters and land. And then people in Winona are surprised by Winona's perfect English. I also thought it could be interesting to touch on the meaning of storms in Winona. They are mentioned pretty frequently, especially during moments of struggle and divide. It could possibly signify the white lightning and wind causing chaos, breaking through the darkness and creating separation, or the efforts to conquer division. I was also thinking of adding more aspects on education and the land, but before I do, I want to pick what is best and see what ideas become more clear to me as I start my actual essay. Now, some problems I may be facing are that I feel like I tend to overgeneralize my arguments a lot, which can make them vague and cause a loss of impact. And in my opinion, I also feel like I have too many concepts right now that I want to work with and address. So I definitely should do my best to stay concise and stick to what is most relevant rather than trying to discuss so many different ideas all at once, which I also have a habit of doing. This may lead me to go off track on tangents or make my paper confusing. So yeah, please, if you have any criticism or feedback, let me know so I can take them into account and make this essay the best it can be. Thank you so much.